The stars shone outside the great glass windows of the alien palace. The human delegation walked in silence, each of them aware that history was being written with every step. No human had ever stood in the royal hall of the Aranthian Empire before. Tonight would be the first time. Among the group was a young man named Ravi. He was not the leader, nor the most powerful of the humans, but he carried himself with quiet strength. He had been chosen not only for his skill in engineering, but also for his calm manner in strange situations. The council back on Earth believed his nature would help ease tensions. The palace was a structure unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Its walls were alive with glowing veins of crystal that pulsed like the rhythm of a heartbeat. Tall spires rose above them, curved and delicate, as if shaped by both nature and art. Guards in silver armor stood at the gates, their eyes sharp and unreadable. When the doors opened, the humans entered the royal hall. It was a vast chamber where the ceiling disappeared into shadows. Dozens of alien nobles stood along the sides, dressed in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid light. They stared at the humans with curiosity and caution. At the far end of the hall sat the Emperor of Aranthia. His presence was heavy, commanding attention without a word. To his right stood the Empress, graceful and poised. And beside her, a step forward, was the Princess Leora. Ravi's eyes lingered on her without meaning to. She was unlike any being he had seen before. Her features carried the elegance of her people, tall, slender, with eyes that glowed faintly like twin stars. Her hair shimmered in colors that shifted with the light, strands of silver and violet blending together. She wore a gown woven from living fibers that moved gently as though breathing. The human leader stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "We come in peace, to share knowledge and friendship." His voice echoed across the hall. The Emperor's deep voice responded, translated through devices both sides carried. "We receive you with caution, but also with hope. Let us see if humans and Aranthians may walk a path together." As the formal words passed between leaders, Ravi stayed behind, observing. He noticed the nobles whispering among themselves, their expressions mixed between interest and suspicion. To them, humans were untested, fragile, short-lived, and unproven. He felt the weight of their gaze, but he stood calmly when the formalities ended. The Emperor allowed the humans to mingle with members of the court. It was a test to see how they would behave in less rigid setting. Ravi found himself moving toward a side of the hall where fewer people stood. There, unexpectedly, was Princess Liora. She was watching him with quiet curiosity. Unlike the nobles, her expression was not cold. It carried wonder, as though she was trying to read a book written in a language she had never seen. "You are one of the humans," she said softly. Her voice was musical, but each word was careful, measured. Ravi bowed slightly. "Yes, Princess. My name is Ravi, Ravi," she repeated, as though testing the sound. "It is short, simple. Human names are very different from ours." "They are," Ravi admitted. He smiled gently. "But simple does not mean empty. A name carries history, even if it is short." Her head tilted slightly. "Do you speak for your people?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "I am not a leader. I am only here to help and to learn." Something about his honesty seemed to surprise her. Most who approached her tried to impress, to speak grand words. He simply answered. She found herself stepping closer. "You do not fear standing here," she said. "I feel the weight of it," Ravi answered truthfully. "But fear would not help me. Calm will." She studied him for a long moment. The silence stretched, but it was not heavy. It was curious, like to minds touching the edge of something new. At that moment, one of the nobles passed by, giving Ravi a sharp glance. Ravi noticed, but he did not shrink away. Leora also saw it, and a small flicker of something crossed her face, perhaps annoyance at her people's suspicion. "You humans are shorter lived than us," she said suddenly, as though speaking a thought that had been sitting inside her mind. "Your lives pass in a blink, yet you still walk boldly among us. Why?" Ravi looked at her glowing eyes, steady and calm. "Because even a short life is meaning if you live it with courage." Her lips parted slightly, as if the answer had caught her off guard. No one in her court would speak so directly, And then it happened. The words slipped from Ravi before he even thought them through. He looked at her, at the shifting colors of her hair, the glow in her eyes, the strange and powerful grace that surrounded her, and he said, simply, "You look gorgeous." The air in the hall froze. Every sound seemed to vanish. The nobles who had been whispering fell silent. Guards stiffened, their eyes locking on Ravi. Leora's eyes widened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Among her people, beauty was acknowledged only in ritual phrases, never in open words. Compliments were sacred, given only in deep ceremony. To call the princess gorgeous in casual speech was shocking, perhaps even dangerous. But she did not feel insulted. She felt something else entirely. The word carried warmth, not strategy. It was not a ritual, not a performance. It was human honesty, raw and unguarded. Her heart beat faster, and she stared at Ravi, unsure what to say. Around them, the nobles began to murmur again, their whispers sharp and urgent. The emperor himself leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing as he studied the young human who had just broken centuries of custom. With a single word, Ravi stood calmly. He did not try to take the words back. He had meant them, and in that silent hall, with dozens of alien eyes fixed on him, the first spark of something entirely new flickered between a human and an alien princess. The royal hall was filled with silence. Ravi's words still hung in the air like a flame that refused to go out. He had spoken them calmly, but the effect was like thunder. Nobles whispered behind their robes, their glowing eyes darting from the human to the princess. Guards shifted their stances, unsure whether they should step forward. The emperor raised his hand, and the whispers died at once. His gaze was heavy as stone, focused entirely on Ravi, human. He said slowly, his deep voice echoing across the chamber, "Do you understand what you have spoken?" Ravi stood tall, though he could feel the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. "Yes, your majesty," he answered. His voice was steady. "I meant it as a gift of respect. Among humans, it is common to call someone gorgeous when we see great beauty. It is not insult, it is truth." The nobles gasped at his boldness. To them, words of beauty were not given lightly. They were rare and sacred, spoken only during great ceremonies of bonding or vow-making. Yet here stood a human, unafraid, explaining himself with plain honesty. Princess Leora did not move. She still stared at him, her wide eyes holding a mix of shock and curiosity. The word he had spoken pulsed in her heart, unlike any ceremonial phrase she had ever heard. No one had dared speak so freely to her in all her years within the palace. The empress leaned toward the emperor, whispering something only he could hear. His brow furrowed deeper, but he gave no command. Instead, he said, "You claim this is a sign of respect, yet to us, it is a breaking of custom. You speak words that only chosen ones may give. Why do you humans break sacred lines so easily?" Ravi's mind raced. He knew this moment could shape how the aliens judged all humans. He bowed respectfully before answering. "We humans are short-lived compared to your kind. Our lives are like a river that runs fast. Because of that, we do not keep our words locked away for ceremonies alone. When we feel something true, we say it. We believe truth loses power if we hide it." The court grew restless again, but this time the whispers carried less anger and more confusion. The nobles struggled to understand this strange human way. Leora finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but clear enough that all could hear. "You call me gorgeous. Why?" Her question silenced everyone again. All eyes turned to Ravi. He looked at her, and for a moment the rest of the hall seemed to fade away. "Because you are," he said simply, "not just for how you look, but for the way you carry yourself. Strong, graceful, and full of light. That is what I see." Leora's breath caught in her throat. She had heard many words in her life praise for her rank, her power, her duty, but never words spoken so plainly to her as a person. The warmth in his voice was not aimed at her crown or her role. It was aimed at her. The emperor's eyes narrowed again, studying both of them. For a long moment, the hall was still. Then he spoke. "Enough for tonight. The council will speak of this later. Humans, You are welcome to remain in our guest quarters. We will decide in time what this moment means." At his command, the court slowly began to disperse. Nobles walked away in clusters, their whispers following like a river of suspicion. Guards stepped aside, but their eyes lingered on Ravi with sharp attention. Ravi bowed once more to the emperor and empress, then turned to follow his group. But before he left, his gaze met Leora's one last time. She did not speak, but there was a question in her eyes, something unspoken that neither of them fully understood yet. The human delegation was escorted to the guest wing of the palace. The hallways glowed with the same crystal veins, casting soft light across their path. Once inside, the humans gathered in a circle, their faces tense. "What were you thinking?" one of the senior delegates hissed at Ravi, calling the princess that word in front of everyone. "Do you realize what risk you placed on all of us?" Ravi stayed calm. "I spoke honestly. That is what they need to see. Not fear, not false words. Honesty can start wars," the elder replied bitterly. "You may have broken a law we do not even understand." Ravi said nothing more. He knew arguing would not help. Instead, he sat quietly, thinking of the way Leora's eyes had widened not with anger, but with something else, something closer to wonder. In her own chamber, Princess Leora sat before a window that opened to the stars. Her servants asked if she wished to remove her gown or prepare for rest, but she dismissed them. She wanted silence. She replayed the moment in her mind, the human's voice, steady and unashamed. The word gorgeous, strange and unfamiliar in its openness, among her people. Words of beauty were exchanged only when lives were bound together. Yet he had spoken it with no ceremony, no binding, just truth. Why had it moved her so deeply? She had been called radiant, divine, luminous, all the ceremonial praises given to royalty. But never had she been called something so simple, so human. Her hand touched the crystal edge of the window. She wondered what it must be like to live such a short life, where every day could be the last, where truth had to be spoken without delay. Humans, she thought, carried both weakness and strength in their fleeting years. Perhaps that was why this one's words burned so brightly. She should have been insulted. She should have called the guards, yet she felt none of that. Instead, she felt a strange warmth in her chest. The next day, the humans were invited to walk the gardens of the palace under watchful eyes of guards. The gardens were unlike anything Ravi had seen, trees of glass-like leaves, flowers that sang faint notes when touched by light, streams that glowed softly in the shade. As the humans moved in small groups, Ravi found himself approached by a familiar figure. It was Princess Leora. She walked without her usual entourage, though two guards followed at a distance. "You spoke boldly last night," she said when she reached him. "I did," Ravi admitted. He did not bow too deeply this time. Instead, he met her eyes with respect. "Do all humans speak this way?" she asked. "Not all," Ravi answered with a small smile. "But many of us believe words are meant to be shared when they are true. They are not treasures to be locked away forever." She walked beside him, her gown brushing the soft glowing grass. "Among my people, words like that bind souls. If one speaks them, they cannot be taken back." "Then I will not take them back," Ravi said gently. She stopped walking, staring at him. The human's calmness unsettled her, but in a way that drew her closer instead of pushing her away. For the first time in her life, she wondered what it would mean to know someone who spoke not with ritual, but with heart. The guards shifted uneasily, but she raised a hand to keep them from interrupting. "Perhaps," she said softly, "I should learn more about your ways. If words mean so much to you, I must understand why." Ravi nodded. "And I should learn about yours. If I am to walk here with respect, I must know the meaning behind your silence." Her lips curved, not into a full smile, but into something close, a beginning. For the first time since the word gorgeous had shaken the royal court, the path between a human and an alien princess began to form, quiet, fragile, but undeniable. The days in the Aranthian palace passed like chapters in a story, each one carrying a new test for the humans. The emperor allowed them to move through the palace gardens, visit the crystal libraries, and watched ceremonies of light and song. Everywhere they went, guards followed. Every step was measured, every action weighed. Ravi moved with quiet patience. He knew each moment was an opportunity for misunderstanding or for trust. The others in his group often stayed together, afraid of making a mistake. Ravi, however, allowed curiosity to guide him. He studied the strange plants that glowed under moonlight, the shifting murals that changed shape with sound, and the songs of the fountains that sang in notes not known on earth. It was during these quiet wanderings that Princess Leora often appeared. At first, their meetings were short. She would ask a simple question, such as why humans chose such plain clothing, or why they spoke without ceremony. Ravi would answer with calm honesty, never forcing the conversation, never trying to impress. But as the days passed, their talks grew longer. They walked side by side in the gardens, beneath crystal trees whose branches bent like liquid silver. They stood by the glowing ponds where fish swam like living sparks. Sometimes they simply sat in silence, listening to the songs of the fountains. One evening, Leora asked him, "Why do humans create art when survival is already so difficult for your kind?" Ravi thought for a moment. Because survival alone is not enough. Food and shelter keep the body alive, but art, music, and stories keep the spirit alive. Without those, living becomes only existing. Her eyes shone softly as she considered his words. Among her people, art was not made for joy but for ritual. The idea of creating simply to feel alive was strange. Yet it touched something inside her. Another time, as they walked beneath the glowing trees, she asked, "Do humans fear death, since your lives are so short?" "Yes," Ravi admitted. "We fear it. But that fear also gives meaning to the days we have. A short life can shine brightly. That is why we speak truth when we feel it. We do not wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow may not come." Leora's steps slowed. She looked at him with quiet wonder, remembering the word he had once spoken in the hall. Gorgeous. She had thought it reckless at first, but now she began to understand. For him, truth was not a danger, but a gift. Their time together did not go unnoticed. Nobles whispered when they saw the princess walking beside a human. Advisors to the emperor grew restless, warning that such closeness could be a weakness. "The humans seek influence," one said. "The young one uses charm to bend the princess's heart." But Leora did not stop. She felt no manipulation in Ravi's words, no hidden motives in his actions. His presence was like clear water, calm and steady. He did not ask for her power. He simply listened, and in listening, he gave her something she rarely received: freedom to be herself. One night, while the twin moons rose over the palace, Leora invited Ravi to see a place no outsider had ever entered. She led him through narrow halls until they stood before a great door of silver crystal. With a wave of her hand, the door opened, revealing a vast chamber filled with floating lights. "This is the Chamber of Echoes," she said softly. "It holds the voices of my ancestors, their thoughts, their memories, their warnings. Only royalty may enter. But tonight, I choose to bring you here." Ravi stepped inside, his eyes wide. The lights drifted around them, glowing softly. When touched, they whispered words in the Aranthian tongue, memories of rulers long gone. "Why show me this?" Ravi asked. "Because I wish to know if your people carry memories the way we do," she said. "We keep ours in light, but you keep yours in hearts. Tell me, Ravi, what memory do you carry that shapes you most?" Ravi was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "My mother's voice. When I was a boy, she told me that no matter how difficult the path, kindness makes it worth walking. She is gone now, but her words stay with me. They guide me." Leora looked at him, her eyes softening. In her world, guidance came from ancient rulers stored in crystal. In his, it came from a simple human mother who spoke with love. The difference touched her deeply. She reached out and touched one of the lights. It whispered in her language, a voice of a queen who lived centuries before. "Strength is duty. Duty is sacrifice," the voice said. Leora's hand lowered. "All my life, I have been told my path is already written. Then I must rule, obey, and never choose. But when you speak, Ravi, I hear something else. I hear choice, Choice is what makes us human, Ravi said gently. Perhaps it can make you free too. Her chest tightened at his words. No one in her world had ever spoken to her this way. She turned away quickly, afraid her thoughts might show on her face. The next morning, the court gathered again. The emperor addressed both humans and nobles, speaking of trade, knowledge, and future ties. Ravi stood quietly among his group, listening. But his eyes found Leora's across the hall. For a heartbeat, the noise of the chamber faded, and it was only the two of them. But not all eyes were kind. One advisor leaned close to the emperor, whispering darkly. The emperor's face hardened. Ravi could feel the weight of suspicion in the air. Later that day, one of the human delegates pulled him aside. You must be careful, Ravi. They think you are too close to her. If they believe you are trying to win her favor, it could destroy this mission. Ravi frowned. I am not trying to win her favor. I am only speaking truth. Truth is dangerous here, the delegate warned. Remember that, Ravi nodded, but his heart did not change. He would not lie, even to protect himself. That night, Leora came to him again. She wore a simple cloak instead of her royal gown, her hair loose instead of woven with jewels. She looked less like a princess and more like a woman seeking answers. They speak against you, she said softly. They say you use your words to buy me. They do not understand. Ravi looked at her calmly. Do you understand? She hesitated, then nodded. I think I do, but it frightens me. I have never chosen my own path before, and now I stand at the edge of something I cannot explain. Ravi's voice was steady. Whatever path you choose, it should be yours, not theirs, not even mine. Yours. Her eyes glimmered in the starlight. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the distance between them filled with unspoken meaning. At last, Leora whispered, perhaps humans live short lives because your hearts burn too brightly. Perhaps that is why your words feel like fire. And though she turned to leave, her lips curved into a faint smile before she disappeared into the shadows. In the days that followed, their bond grew quietly but steadily. They spoke not as princess and subject, but as two souls searching for meaning in a vast universe. Ravi gave her honesty, and Leora gave him trust, yet the palace was not blind. Nobles whispered louder. Advisors warned of danger, and the emperor's watchful eyes grew sharper each day. The bond between a human and an alien princess was fragile, like glass under pressure. But it was real, and in that fragile truth, something powerful was beginning to take shape, something that could change the fate of both worlds. The Aranthian palace glimmered under the twin moons, its crystal walls reflecting light like flowing water. The court was preparing for the evening ceremonies when the alarms rang. A low hum vibrated through the hallways, and the ground shook gently beneath their feet. Guards rushed to positions, their movements precise and tense. The emperor rose from his throne, his face sharp as lightning. What is happening? He demanded. One of the sentries ran forward, his voice strained. A hostile fleet has approached the palace borders. They do not respond to signals. Our defenses detect unknown energy patterns. Whispers erupted among the nobles. The humans exchanged nervous glances. Ravi's heart beat steadily. He knew panic would not solve anything. Instead, he focused on the information before him. Princess Leora stood beside her parents, her face calm but determined. She had grown used to moments of ceremony, but this was different. Lives were at stake, not appearances. Ravi stepped forward. Your Majesty, if I may, he said respectfully. Perhaps I can help. My team has experience with energy systems and defenses. I may find a way to stabilize the palace shields. The emperor's gaze fixed on him. You would risk yourself among these unknown forces? Ravi nodded. Yes, I will not speak idle words. If I can protect your people, I must try. Leora's eyes widened, but not in surprise. She had begun to trust him. Ravi, she said softly, I know you will act with honor. I will stand by your side if you need me. He inclined his head. Thank you, Princess. The humans and Aranthian engineers worked quickly, moving through corridors to reach the control chambers. The alien technology was advanced, more intricate than anything Ravi had studied before. But he adapted. He examined the energy nodes, comparing patterns, noting weaknesses outside the palace. Alien ships hovered, strange and dark against the glowing skies. Their movements were precise, calculated, and aggressive. The palace shields shimmered, flickering under the strain. If the energy faltered, the entire structure could collapse. Inside, tensions rose. Nobles murmured nervously. Some suggested surrender. Others demanded the emperor command immediate retaliation. But Ravi saw a different path. He had studied similar energy systems on Earth complex networks where one small adjustment could balance immense power. With careful hands, he manipulated the interface, redirecting energy flows, stabilizing the shields. The hum of the palace softened as the flickering light steadied. The emperor observed silently, his expression unreadable. Leora stood beside Ravi, watching the glow of the systems and the steady rise of hope. Suddenly, alarms blared again. A new threat emerged. One of the outer shield nodes had been sabotaged. Guards rushed to the site, but the attackers were not visible. The palace shook violently, and a deep worry entered the minds of all who were present. Ravi moved without hesitation. He sprinted toward the outer nodes, navigating the labyrinthine hallways. Leora followed, despite the guards' protests. She would not stay behind while the human she trusted risked himself. "Princess, you should return." A guard shouted. "I will not leave him," she said firmly. Together, they reached the node chamber. The energy core glowed erratically, sparks jumping from one connector to another. Ravi knelt, examining the system. He realized quickly that the sabotage involved alien mechanisms unfamiliar. Even to the palace engineers, "Stay back," he instructed Leora calmly. "I need to work without distraction." She nodded, standing a few steps behind. She could see the focus in his eyes, the careful way he handled components, the precision of his mind and action. Minutes passed, each one stretching endlessly. Sparks flew, but Ravi did not flinch. He rerouted energy, stabilized circuits, and adjusted the frequency of the shield nodes. Finally, the glow steadied. The core hummed smoothly, the outer shields regained strength, and the palace tremor subsided. Leora exhaled slowly. She had watched him risk life and safety for a people he barely knew. Yet in his actions, she saw something extraordinary. He was not a man of fear or hesitation. He was courage, thought, and heart combined. The palace council convened immediately after the crisis. Nobles voiced their suspicion openly. "The human acts too boldly," one declared. "His presence endangers the princess. Who can trust him?" Another said, "He may be clever, but cleverness can be a trap. We should isolate him before more damage occurs." The emperor's gaze swept across them, and then rested on Leora. "And what do you say, princess?" he asked. Leora's lips pressed together for a moment. She looked at Ravi, who stood quietly, calm despite the scrutiny. Then she spoke with confidence that surprised even herself. "He has saved this palace. He has not acted for himself, but for all of us. I will not have him punished for his courage." Gasps echoed across the chamber. Nobles whispered urgently. A human's life had never been defended so openly by a princess. Ravi bowed slightly to her, his calm expression unchanged. "Your words honor me, princess. But the credit belongs to all who acted to protect the palace." Leora shook her head. "No, you acted first. You chose to face danger. That is why your actions matter." In the days following the crisis, Ravi and Leora spent more time together, but always under watchful eyes. She insisted on accompanying him when inspecting energy systems or checking the outer defenses. Together, they discovered ways to improve the palace's shields, using a combination of human logic and Aranthian technology. Through these efforts, their bond deepened. They spoke of their worlds, their people, and their hopes. Ravi admired Leora not for her title or beauty, but for her wisdom and courage. Leora admired Ravi not for his skill or bravery, but for his honesty and determination. Yet, the court remained suspicious. Some nobles whispered that Leora was being influenced by the human. They could not understand a bond formed without manipulation or fear. One afternoon, Leora faced the emperor privately. "Father, I will not let suspicion guide my judgment," she said. He studied her carefully. Do you trust him? Yes, she replied simply, not blindly. I watch him as I would any person, but I see no deceit, only truth. The emperor nodded slowly. Very well, but remember, the bond between our people and yours is delicate. One wrong move could unravel everything. I understand, she said. Ravi, unaware of the court's private discussions, continued his work. He was methodical and careful, never showing fear or arrogance. The humans and Aranthians began to work together more smoothly. Even skeptical nobles started to acknowledge his skill, albeit quietly. One evening, as Ravi adjusted an energy node on the palace's roof, Leora joined him. The twin moons cast silver light across their faces. She watched him carefully, noticing how he handled even the most delicate equipment with patience and respect. You are very different from what I expected, she said softly. Ravi looked up and smiled gently. Different how? You do not seek power. You do not demand admiration. You only act with truth. That is rare among humans or among any people. He chuckled softly. Perhaps truth is rare everywhere, but it is worth it when found. She nodded, feeling a warmth she had never felt before. In him, there was no ceremony, no fear, no expectation, only honesty and heart. For a moment, neither spoke. The light of the moons reflected in the crystal walls, the wind whispered through the palace towers, and the stars seemed to shine more brightly. In that silence, the bond between a human and an alien princess grew stronger, forged not by ritual, but by courage and trust. And though danger had come close, though suspicion lingered like a shadow, something undeniable had begun. Together, they had faced crisis and emerged stronger. Together, they would continue to shape the future of both their peoples. The palace was calm again, though the echoes of the recent crisis still lingered. Outside, the twin moons reflected on the crystal towers, casting silver light across the Aranthian gardens. The alien fleet that had threatened the palace had withdrawn, unable to overcome the combined defenses. Inside, the atmosphere was tense but proud. Nobles whispered among themselves, some in admiration, others in doubt. The emperor convened a council, this time with humans present. He spoke with a deep, commanding voice. Let it be known that the human, Ravi, acted with courage and intelligence. His actions saved the palace and its people. Let us honor those who protect life, regardless of origin. Murmurs spread through the council. Some nobles nodded with respect, though a few still regarded him cautiously. Leora stood tall beside her parents, her expression calm but proud. She turned to Ravi, who stood quietly among the human delegation. Come forward, she said softly. Ravi stepped ahead, bowing slightly. Leora raised her hand, and the glow of the palace lights reflected in her eyes. You have done more than any ceremony could measure. You risked yourself for others, not for glory, not for reward. That is true courage. The emperor's gaze softened as he looked at the young human. Courage must be acknowledged. You have shown us the value of your people, Ravi, not just in strength, but in heart. Ravi bowed respectfully. Your Majesty, it was my duty and honor to protect this palace and your people. I am grateful for the trust given to me. The nobles whispered again, but the tone had changed. Respect now mixed with curiosity. A human had proven that courage and honesty could stand alongside tradition and ritual. Later, in a quieter part of the palace, Leora walked with Ravi through the gardens. The air was cool, and the glow of the alien plants lit their path. For a moment, neither spoke. Words were not needed. The bond between them had grown stronger through trials and shared experiences. Finally, Leora spoke. You have changed the way my people see humans. But more than that, you have shown me something I never expected. Ravi looked at her with gentle attention. And what is that, princess? That trust can exist between worlds. That courage can come from honesty. That a single word spoken with heart can open doors no ritual ever could. Ravi smiled. I only spoke what I felt. You made it easy to be honest. Her eyes shone. Perhaps humans live fast, and our lives are long. But your life has taught me to see with new eyes, to value each word and action for its truth. He nodded quietly. and your actions taught me patience and understanding. Both are needed for a bond to last. The palace council soon called a gathering to honor Ravi's contributions. Nobles from across the empire stood as he walked into the great hall. He did not bow deeply to impress, nor did he speak unnecessarily. Instead, he stood calmly, letting his deeds speak for him. The emperor raised a hand. Let it be known that Ravi, a human, has earned not only respect but gratitude. He has reminded us that strength is not only in power or technology, but in heart and courage. Let his actions serve as a lesson to all. Applause echoed, though it was quiet compared to human standards. Leora smiled from her place beside the throne. She knew the council was still cautious, but the seed of trust had been planted later. Leora stepped forward alone. The hall was quiet now, the echoes of conversation fading. Ravi, she said softly. He turned. Princess Leora, you saved not just this palace, but the bond between our worlds, she said. I am proud to call you friend. Perhaps more than a friend. Ravi's gaze met hers, steady and calm. I am honored, princess. I did not act for reward, only to protect. But your words mean more than I can say, she nodded. And your actions mean more than words ever could. My people will remember them. I will remember them. A quiet moment passed between them, filled with understanding and trust. This was more than admiration. It was respect, loyalty, and a connection formed through trials, honesty, and courage. The days after the council were filled with preparations. For the human delegations returned to their ship. Ravi walked through the palace one last time, inspecting the systems he had helped stabilize. Speaking to Aranthian engineers who had learned to trust his methods, he paused by the gardens, where Leora joined him. The alien plants glowed softly, petals opening as if to greet them. You leave soon, she said. And yet, I feel this is not the end. Ravi smiled. No, it is not the end. The bond we formed here will last, even across worlds. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the twin moons. I hope one day our people will see each other as you have shown them. Not as strangers, not as unknown threats, but as allies. As friends, they will, Ravi said firmly. Because the truth we share is stronger than fear. Before leaving, the emperor requested a private audience with Ravi. The human bowed respectfully as the Aranthian ruler spoke. You have proven something remarkable. The emperor said, not all humans are brave, but you have shown that some carry honesty and courage as weapons as sharp as any technology. You have earned my respect. Ravi bowed deeply. Your Majesty, your words honor me. I am grateful for the trust and opportunity. The emperor nodded, a rare smile touching his lips. Go with the blessing of Aranthia. And remember, the palace and its people will always welcome you. Ravi's heart swelled with pride. He had come as a guest, a representative of humanity, and now he left as a symbol of trust, courage, and hope. As he walked to the waiting ship, Leora joined him one last time. She extended her hand, a gesture of connection between worlds. Ravi took it gently. May your journey be safe, she said, and may your people continue to show what humans can be. You have inspired me as much as I have inspired you, Ravi replied. Your courage and wisdom are as beautiful as any star in your skies. Her eyes widened, and she smiled fully this time. Perhaps you are not wrong about humans after all. Ravi chuckled softly. We are not perfect, but we strive to be honest and to do what is right. The twin moons reflected in their eyes, and in that moment, a bridge had been built between their worlds. One word, a simple compliment, had begun a journey of trust, courage, and friendship that would endure. The ship lifted from the crystal grounds, rising into the night sky. Leora watched as it disappeared among the stars, knowing that the human who had dared to speak honestly had changed everything. And Ravi looked back at the glowing palace one last time, knowing that humanity had proven its value not through force, but through courage, honesty, and heart. The future between humans and Aranthians was bright, and the bond that had begun with a single word would continue to grow, stronger with each passing day. The story of Ravi and Princess Leora became a symbol of hope, showing that even across worlds, trust, respect, And courage could unite to very different peoples, and for both, it was only the beginning.